Nosotras, las mujeres argentinas, merecemos la enorme responsabilidad de decidir también el destino de la patria.
Hoy la mujer argentina, la que nunca se doblega y la que siempre se juega por Evita y por Perón. Yo soy la descamisada, a la que al fin se le escucha.
On December 30th, 2020, Argentina became the first major Latin American country to legalize abortion. It was not a political coincidence, nor a sudden shift in policy. It was a result of decades of organizing, resistance, and radical hope. In the face of silence, they shouted. In the face of stigma, they waved green. And in the face of power, they built their own. For most of Argentina's history, abortion was only legal in extreme cases. In 2018, a bill to legalize abortion passed the lower house but failed in the Senate, exposing deep divisions in Argentine politics. The Catholic Church and conservative sectors played a key role in halting the bill, invoking tradition and morality to restrict bodily autonomy. But 2018 wasn't a loss. It was a turning point. It linked the fight for reproductive justice with Ni Una Menos, a national movement against femicide. Together, they reframed abortion not as a moral failure, but as a part of a broader struggle against gender-based violence. This moment was more than Argentina. It was a call across Latin America where abortion remains criminalized in most countries. The heartbeat of this movement was grassroots feminism. The Campaña Nacional por el Derecho al Aborto Legal, Seguro y Gratuito united activists, midwives, students, teachers, and workers. Secondary school students and university feminists became visible leaders, organizing pañuelazos, creative protests, and online campaigns. But the movement was also deeply intersectional. It centered voices of the poor, indigenous, and rural women, those most harmed by unsafe abortions and by a healthcare system that ignored them. They reframed abortion as not only a feminist issue, but a public health crisis, a question of class, geography, and dignity. Their slogan said it all: education to decide, contraceptives to avoid abortion, and legal abortion to prevent deaths. In 2019, Alberto Fernandez was elected president and pledged to support the abortion bill as part of his campaign. Progressive Peronists and feminist legislators rallied behind him, reviving the fight that had fallen short in 2018. But opposition remained strong, from conservative Peronists and right-wing coalition Juntos por el Cambio and religious blocs. As the Senate prepared to vote, thousands camped outside Congress. The streets pulsed with green, hope, and exhaustion. This wasn't just legislation, it was national reckoning. When the results were read, 38 votes in favor, 21 against, 1 abstention, Argentina made history. To understand the power of this movement, we can turn to feminist political theory. Bell Hooks on Feminism and Care, Intersectionality by Crenshaw, and Gramsci's Counter-Hegemony and Civil Society. Bell Hooks described feminism as an ethic of love, a commitment to healing, community, and care. The Green Wave embodied this, building mutual aid networks, offering abortion education, and creating safe spaces for collective grief and resistance. Antonio Gramsci's concept of counter-hegemony also applies. Argentine feminists didn't only fight laws, they challenged Catholic conservatism, machismo culture, and the belief that some bodies deserve less autonomy. Through civil society, they shifted the political imagination. Through intersectional feminism, they brought the voices of the most marginalized, Black, Indigenous, poor, rural, trans, into the center. This movement didn't just demand rights, it redefined whose lives are seen as worth protecting. Aside from the three main theoretical frames, other scholars discuss the complex nature of how December 30th, 2020 came to be. The first article, titled Queering Abortion Rights, Notes from Latin America, explores how inclusive language in Argentinian legislation can reflect and affirm non-normative identities. This article analyzes public documents and interviews with activists from Argentina's main abortion rights coalition. It highlights the incorporation of queer and trans voices into the movement and identifies internal tensions, such as generational divides and differing LGBTQ+ experiences that challenge older understandings of gender. The 2020 legalization notably included the phrase, persons who have the capacity to gestate, a direct example of this shift away from strictly gendered language. Another important piece of context was the 2018 abortion bill, which passed in the lower house but failed in the Senate. Political scientist Putnam's concept of two-level games helps explain this. He argues that local Argentine politicians, especially influential governors with national ambitions, often partially comply with national demands, even if they personally oppose them, as a matter of political calculus. This dynamic contributes to the territorial inequalities in abortion access across Argentina's federal system. A third article examines conservative litigation against reproductive rights in Argentina. Pro-life NGOs legally challenge reproductive health organizations using arguments rooted in fetal personhood, claiming human life begins at conception. They also contested the right to health, arguing that contraception harms women's bodies, and invoked parental authority, stating that sexual education and family planning should be under the control of parents, not the state. Another peer-reviewed study analyzes how the pro-choice movement strategically used human rights discourses. Activists linked abortion rights to Argentina's legacy of a dictatorship and state violence, particularly through the lens of international frameworks like the UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. They formed alliances with human rights organizations, reframed reproductive health care neglect as a form of state abuse, and challenged anti-abortion rhetoric by exposing contradictions in how human rights were selectively applied. Argentina's abortion legalization was not a gift from the state. It was a feminist victory, earned through years of struggle, strategy, and care. It showed Latin America and the world that legal change can come from the bottom up, that massive transformation can begin with small acts, organizing, educating, and resisting together. But the fight isn't over, not in Argentina, and not across the region. Still, on that night in 2020, the Green Wave didn't just change the law, it transformed what is politically possible.